Now on Nights with Steve Price, the 50 Up Club with Kayley Harris.
Talking power prices tonight. Kayley, how are you?
Good, thanks, Steve.
50 Up Club has been at the forefront of trying to get people's power bills down. Finally, someone in Canberra's woken up that electricity prices are not only something that upsets everybody, they're an election issue, and you could actually lose office. I think the Premier of South Australia will lose office over blackouts.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a possibility in Victoria that Daniel Andrews will get booted out of office because he's shutting down coal-fired power stations. Malcolm Turnbull says let's get the ACCC involved and get them to investigate. Why is it going to take 15 months, though?
I have no idea. They have so much to look into. I mean, the key points of reference for the review will be cost drivers of power prices, barriers to consumers getting good offers, and whether retail behaviour is actually preventing competition. So it really is a shot across the bow for energy retailers to lift their game, because now the ACCC, under Rod Sims, will have some power to look into what they're doing and whether it's actually in the interests of consumers. It's
a dangerous territory for the coalition because Liberal governments around the country, particularly Mike Baird in New South Wales and the former Kennett Liberal government in South Australia and the Newman government in Queensland, all sold off electricity assets. We were told power prices out of the hands of government, in the hands of private enterprise, would in fact be cheaper. They haven't been.
Yeah.
And so Labor can now campaign and say, see what happens when you let big business get their hands on publicly owned assets.
Exactly. And the problem with that is that one of the biggest drivers is investment in poles and wires, or as you call it, gold plating, where the owners of the poles and wires have spent a fortune upgrading them and they get paid according to how much they spend. So they spend up big. And of course, our power prices go up as a result.
What can the ACCC do? What power have they got?
Well, the Turnbull government says they have got powers to look into how they're structuring their pricing, and one of the other areas of concern is the practice of quietly defaulting customers on the most expensive plan. So you ring up and you get a great deal and you get your discount, and then after 12 months, when that period expires, you automatically default to the most expensive plan.
Why?
Exactly. It doesn't happen in the UK.
Did you know that?
Yet no, I didn't know that either till I looked into it. But
either.
now they're suggesting that you be defaulted to a mid-range product, and that's what's happening in the UK. So we're hoping that will happen here as well, because unless you ring up and make that call, nothing's going to change. They're not going to ring you and say, hey, Steve, guess what? You're not on the best deal. Let's fix that for you. It's not going to happen.
That's where 50 Up Club comes in, of course. And one of the things that we've often campaigned about is that our 50 Up Club members who are retired and on fixed incomes, the biggest issue for them is that, they've got low interest-bearing accounts that they're living off. Their fixed costs go up. Electricity's been the biggest one. I think Rod Sims said that electricity prices are doubled on top of inflation.
Yes, exactly right.
You're already dealing with inflation and you double that. Many people have got to say, well, I've got to do without something.
Exactly.
I've got to eat less expensive food, or I've got to drive less in my car, spend less on petrol. I can't take a once-a-year trip to visit the kids who live interstate. Those sorts of things, I think, are really important.
And as we've spoken many times, we've got the premium increase coming up in private health insurance this Saturday, and that is one of the things that people are dropping out of because they simply can't afford it. You could argue that private health insurance is something you may or may not need. Electricity, you definitely need it. You can't afford to compromise on your electricity bill.
Well, my advice to Malcolm Turnbull and anyone in any government anywhere, if you're going to have an inquiry into electricity prices, do it quickly. Don't wait a year or 15 months, this will be, and you need to move quickly to prevent these prices going up. They always say, oh, well, it's an independent regulator who sets the price. Well, someone's got to talk to the independent regulator and say, how come everything else is not going up double inflation? Why is electricity going up so much?
Exactly, and have a look at all the factors that bear on that price increase. What exactly are they working off? What figures are they working off to actually get those price increases?
We get anecdotal evidence, but I'm sure now that it's real, that there are people listening to us who in the winter, in particular, some of you, I think you can cope a little better with being hot, in the winter are sitting around in the dark in cold houses because they're too afraid to put their heaters on. Now, people say, oh, that sounds anecdotal and it's probably invented. I don't think that's the case at all. I'm sure that's real.
Yeah, we're hearing particularly from members in South Australia where they've had ongoing power issues that's definitely happening for older Australians. They just don't want to turn it on, and it may be a mindset going back to to earlier days when they didn't have any air conditioning, but now that they do have it, they're still reluctant to turn it on, and it has, rollover effects on their health and all sorts of other issues. So it needs to be addressed quickly. Hopefully we'll see results from a prelim look at this review in about 6 months' time.
Loyalty cards. I got a text message or an email the other day from Qantas saying, how you can convert points off credit cards and you put it onto your frequent flyer card. That means you can use points to fly. They had an offer for the month of March where if you transferred points off your credit card onto your frequent flyer card, they would increase it. So if you a certain amount of points, they'd top it up by 15, 20, 30%, sliding scale. I didn't do it because I didn't really understand it.
You're not
Loyalty
alone.
cards are very confusing, and they're designed to be.
Yeah, and they're designed to work in favour of the retailer, not in favour of you and I. Now, 9 out of 10 Australians are members of loyalty cards, and there are 58 million rewards cards in circulation at the moment.
58 million?
Yeah, in Australia compared to 17 million credit cards. And most of the time we sign up to them because we might shop regularly a particular space and we think, a particular shop, and we think, oh, this is a good idea. I come here, I may as well just sign up. But you don't really know what you're signing up for, and you're actually handing over a lot of very valuable information.
Explain that for people, because I don't think people understand that. So
Okay,
let's use a typical card example.
I'll give you a really good example that I went on to do, of course, some research for the 50 Up Club about dating for the over 50s. Of course, it was research.
Yes.
Yep. And then every time I get on the internet, ever since then, up comes mature singles dating sites. So when you go into Google and you search for things, it gathers that information, finds out all it can about you, and then starts targeting you with advertising. Now, you would think that targeted advertising would be a good thing, right? We would prefer to be targeted with our advertising with products we actually want, if it replaced generic advertising, but it doesn't. It's on top of generic advertising, so you're getting a double whammy of all of these things. You've only got to search one thing and you'll keep getting slammed with it, on your social media or on your phone for the next 12 months. So it's just too much information, too much noise, and these companies are using it to gather information to target you more with their products.
So loyalty cards are data mining your information.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's a valuable asset for them. That's the value of their company.
Exactly.
Because they've got your details.
Don't underestimate how much your information is worth. Probably the only exception to that, I think, would be, your local corner coffee shop with a coffee card.
Yep.
That's an old-fashioned cardboard
So
card.
I presume the big supermarkets, Woolies and Coles, are doing this, are they?
Yeah, definitely. Of course they are. Of course, they're not doing anything illegal. But who reads the privacy policy and the conditions at the bottom of the form? Nobody.
Absolutely nobody.
You don't know where they're sending your information. They could be, on selling your information. A lot of big companies do that.
Kayley, pleasure to see you as usual on a Thursday night. Talk to you next week.